Alex, it's terrible to be back.
Yeah, I would imagine so, for a whole host of reasons, but why don't you list a few of them yourself?
Well, for the previous 5, 6 days, I wake up, it's beautiful, open up the windows, you open up your fridge, and it's just full of beer. It's not particularly
Mm,
good beer.
doesn't matter.
Brahma Light, which was the beer that they were stocking in the fridge every day, I strongly suspect is the PBR of the Dominican Republic, but A, that doesn't bother me too much, and B, well, I shouldn't say you're not paying for it. I certainly paid for it. You just pay for it all up front, and
Yeah,
then which I've never done. I've never done one of those before, and while it's a lot of money up front, oh man, it feels like way less money by the end of the trip because you can do whatever you want. Like, do you want apple pie? Fuck yeah, get some apple pie. Do you want to have 7 beers today? Do it. Don't have to feel bad about it. It's great.
sounds like it was a hell of a vacation all around. Uh,
Yeah, no internet. That was the best thing about it.
oh man.
So you could pay for internet. It was $3 an hour, and then it scaled from there. But I didn't have much reason to be on other than once a day checking my emails to make sure there weren't any major fires for E3 scheduling. But I had taken care of most of that stuff before I left on purpose, and then only had to check in once or twice. But man, um, your life is a lot happier when you're not on
Mhm.
the internet, as it
Oh
turns
yeah.
out.
Yeah, the internet is a dark, scary, horrifying place full of assholes, whereas the Dominican Republic has sun and beaches and limited internet access that you have to pay for. So I can like only imagine that it must have been a very soothing experience to be away from all of that.
Yeah, it was nice. I highly recommend the taking a break from the internet every once in a while, even if you don't go anywhere. Just taking a break from the internet is a really it's a really nice thing. It
Yeah,
works out really,
yeah.
really well.
See, when I was in China, I should have just used that opportunity to not look at the internet at all for like 2 weeks, but I have this horrible addiction where I still have to check every once in a while, so I did, and I regret that now. I should have just let go.
Yeah, so it was a really good time. Had a lot of fun. And I also recommend. This is one thing I had a chance to do that I imagine most people don't get a chance to do because it's not exactly. I wouldn't necessarily categorize it under fun, but so part of the reason we went to the Dominican Republic was because my dad was one of the higher ups at this company, Riddell, who makes a lot of football equipment and other sports equipment. And one of the factories they oversee is one in the Dominican Republic. And they were huge fans of my dad and actually ended up dedicating a building to him in
Oh, no
the
way.
factory down there. And so when my wife and I and a couple we went with were trying to figure out where should we go, I was like, well, I can't imagine that one day I'm going to wake up and be like, I should fly to the Dominican Republic and go see that factory. So what if we went to the Dominican Republic and then also made a point of going to the factory? And the factory itself is located in Santo Domingo, which is long, long way away from the nice illusion that this country tries to present as what everything the Dominican Republic is about. You know, the Dominican Republic has, like a lot of tropical islands, a big tourism industry, and then like a lot of like the rest of the country is fairly poor.
Right.
And that is true of the Dominican Republic too, especially in Santo Domingo. And the Dominican Republic is, a Spanish colony that it borders a French colony, Haiti, which obviously is its own like really, really sort of upsetting mess. But so we had a chance to actually go through. It's a 3-hour drive to get to the factory from where our all-inclusive was. So had a chance to really, see a little bit more of that country, and certainly puts going on vacation there, and just sort of the illusion that is created for you when you're
Hmm.
at like one of these all-inclusives, because you're sort of paying for the illusion, which is fun. Really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed my illusion. But if you get a chance to see other parts of the places you get to visit, I would highly recommend it. It certainly puts a lot of that stuff in perspective, and it was certainly touching to go and see the factory and actually talk to the workers that had like met my dad and like oh, you look just like him. And it was really it was an interesting experience all around. And if you ever go on something like that, I definitely, you probably can't go to a factory with your dad's name on it, but going to the quote unquote realer parts of some of those countries is certainly worthwhile.
If I found a factory with my dad's name on it, that would be really confusing because my dad was into like computers and mostly was into like Cisco router training like back in the 90s. So I don't know where that would even happen, and that would be really kind of alarming, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you wake up in a different body in a different life, and then you have to go to a factory, then you'll be set.
I will get right on that. I didn't know that was a thing I could do. I immediately want to do that right now.
Yeah. I
Now,
won a dance competition on the first day.
oh no shit.
I don't know if I'd call it a dance competition, but I was plucked out of the audience to dance because every night they had a show for the adults that went from like 9:30 to 11, and they will randomly pluck people to just like embarrass them in front of everyone that they're with. And I was picked on the first night we were there, and I had to do some embarrassing dance, and I managed to get a USA chant going, and then I won because they did the awards based on who got the loudest cheers, and I was doing the Hulk Hogan like wrap around your ear, get the crowd going.
Oh my god.
Very effective, very effective. I ended up winning. I got an extremely large T-shirt that does not fit me, but maybe in 20 years, I'll be able to fill it out.
Let's hope not, because that doesn't necessarily speak well of your health. But also, while you were there was an earthquake, but you had nothing to do with that, right?
No. So apparently there are earthquakes all the time in that region, but they often take place in the ocean. So you'll feel them a little bit. But yeah, I think on Wednesday when I did pay $3 to flip on the internet, just got a flood of like DMs and texts from Vinny. It's just like, oh, like are you fucking okay? Like what the hell is going on? And I'm like, what happened? Like did something happen on your end? Like do you not know I'm on vacation? That there's a reason I haven't been online for several days? It's like, no, there was an earthquake. It's like, oh. And I guess it happened like 30 miles offshore, and I guess sometimes it will be felt, on shore, but that was not the case for us. So it was very kind of Vinny to freak me the hell out that something was wrong.
Well, considering the last time something like that happened in that region, it was the whole Haiti situation, which was, a pretty massive disaster, all things considered. Though, like as soon as I heard earthquake in Dominican Republic, I looked up. It was like a 5. No injuries or damage reported yet, and I was like, oh well, he's probably fine.
Yeah. No, we were all good, but I certainly appreciated people asking about it, and it made me break my Twitter rule. I went on and at least tweeted that I was okay. Which seemed like the reasonable thing to do, but
nice.
Yeah, no, I had a great time. Certainly would have enjoyed having a vacation after E3 as opposed to pre-E3, but the way a lot of these sort of like vacation packages work out, once kids get out of school, the prices go whoop.
Yeah.
So a lot of families go on these things because they have places for kids to get watched and things like that. So there were a lot of families there even when we were there, but they were a lot of really, really young kids that weren't necessarily in school yet, and I guess like everything skyrockets starting in June because everyone's out of school and is doing summer vacation. So took it when I could, and definitely it's one of those things that I now realize why people like at the end of it, it's like, well, we got to plan this next one. We just I can't live life knowing that I don't have another one of these on the horizon. So
there must always be a vacation somewhere down the road, a carrot at the end of the stick.
I understand why people go on vacation now. I never do that. I never ever go on vacation, which is stupid. My vacation days constantly go to waste, but I think I need to change that.
Yeah, I've taken time off, and I've taken a lot of like staycations. But I'm trying to remember the last time I actually took like a real we're traveling somewhere for fun vacation. I think it was when I went to Thailand, like all those years ago when I went to Hong Kong and Thailand. Like there was some family stuff with my girlfriend involved there, but that was mostly just like we're going for fun to do what we want to do, and that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, you should take a vacation.
Maybe I should. Yeah, maybe sometime this year. We'll see.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff happened. I picked a week where a lot of news occurred, it seems, and we'll get to some of that. But what have you been up to?
Oh God, this week. So I played through the new Wolf Among Us episode, which I did a recap of, went up yesterday. That did not take up very much of my week because that episode's only about an hour long.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, is it a good hour?
No. It's about 25 minutes of good and 35 minutes of why are you stretching? It's a lot of stretching for time in a short episode, which is not a real good look. That episode's a real bummer. It doesn't. I mean, it sets up some stuff for the last episode that I think will be good. But it definitely is a lot of table setting, and it's not very good table setting. It's like introducing characters that aren't that interesting. There's a whole bit where like you go to the butcher shop of the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, that whole thing, and you find out he's been taken over by, you know, the omnipresent crooked man organization. And it's like one of those scenes that you go to like in a Law and Order episode where they find out, they're starting to find out that there's a larger thing going on. They go to a business, they find out that this person is involved. They talk to him for like 3 minutes, maybe they interrogate him for another minute after that, and that's it. But it goes on forever. Like you are just talking to this guy about his, you know, sad life and having to give himself over to this criminal organization forever. And it's not that interesting for very long, and that's what that episode is full of, just moments that feel like they're going on for way too long, even though there's not that much in the episode.
It seems like the episodic structure of The Wolf Among Us, is odd. I can't tell how much of that is... It seems like it'd be odd if they had planned it all this way, or if maybe there was something that happened along the way regarding production that forced them... Because obviously now it feels like these episodes are coming out faster, but it also seems like the quality is taking a dip. Maybe it's possible that they're taking, slimming down some of these intermediate episodes, and we're going to have like a really punchy, big, lengthy finale, but they certainly don't seem to be setting that as an indication, especially, this seems to be so odd contrasted against The Walking Dead, which I'm not going to spoil because I haven't played the next episode yet either, but, by all accounts, including yours, that's getting better and better, as opposed to The Wolf Among Us, which started really good and then seems to be getting worse and worse.
That's the way I feel about it, yeah. And it's weird. Like I've said it a couple of times in those recaps. Like I feel like The Walking Dead is a game that very much benefits from its episodic structure. It feels like it's paced out, and like through both seasons so far, it feels like it has been paced out in a way that benefits from that structure. The Wolf Among Us has felt very much like it is Telltale trying to jam that game into that structure without finding ways to make it feel like it fits. Like the choices don't ever feel quite as meaningful. I feel like the first couple of episodes had some good choice stuff, but like the last two have had almost none that really felt like they really impacted the story at all. The cliffhangers haven't been that great. I think the episode 3 was probably the only one that had like a really good cliffhanger, and then this last one really didn't have a particularly awesome one. It just doesn't feel like the episodic thing is really benefiting The Wolf Among Us at all, even though you would think like a police procedural would totally fit into that structure. They just haven't found a way to make it that interesting. Like I feel like that's a game that will be better if you just play all 5 episodes in one shot, because separation is making me like it less and less as each week goes along.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it would only be an hour, that seems really skimping it, unless that is an hour with a lot of impact and but for that to just be table setting seems like something's a little bit off about, hard to know without getting better insight into the production schedule of that series. But really disappointing, because I truly was that first episode is fantastic.
It is. It's an amazing pilot. It's one of those shows or games in this case that I think had a really amazing pilot and a really great concept, and then the subsequent episodes just have not done anything near that for me. Like, the second one's pretty good. The third one had a lot of problems, but I think was mostly okay. This last one is just like, I don't know. Like, it felt like I was wasting a lot of time, even though it wasn't taking me that long to get through it, which is a really weird way for things to go in that. I don't know. I'm bummed out by it, because I want to be excited for that finale, but at this point, like, I don't know if I really care. I mean, I'm going to play it, obviously, but I'm just sort of like, I don't know if I really care that much.
Well, you've got me really excited to play it this weekend.
Well, I'm glad I'm able to do that for you. Beyond the scope of that, mostly I have been preparing to go to San Francisco next week.
Right. Yeah, you always come out just before E3.
Yeah, I like to get in there, spend a little time in the office before we all head to E3, and I also like to do that drive to LA for reasons that I can no longer adequately explain to anyone. Like, anyone says, why would you want to do that 6-hour LA drive? And it's like, I don't know. It's just like something in my soul that I have to do. It's like a pilgrimage kind of thing. Like I have to do it, otherwise it doesn't feel like I've had a real year. Like it's just I have to do that once every year, or nothing feels right anymore. That one year I didn't go to E3 at all, where I was just working on screen and I didn't go to E3. That whole year just felt wrong. Like it was like I had walked into an alternate universe where nothing made sense.
Yeah, I mean, I know eventually there will be a year where I don't go to E3. I've been doing E3 since I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Now,
You're not supposed to do.
No, not 4 to 5 doctors do not recommend going to E3 for well over a decade. And at some point, there will be a reason that I don't go. I'm not sure when that will be or why that will be, but that's going to be that will probably be, like, other than having a child, like the biggest change you could make to like something that happens to me during the year.
Yeah.
Not going to E3 because it's just a thing I've done for basically the length of raising a child. For more than 14 years, I've been going to E3, and that is I can't say that's something I'm proud of necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going for probably roughly the same amount of time you have, with only one break in between, and I don't know. It's like you can sit there and you can debate the merits of E3 anymore, whether it really makes that much sense to exist, whether it actually benefits the industry at all. I think those are all valid points. My argument against getting rid of E3 is I need it. I need it in my life. As much as I want to say I don't need it, I don't want it, I hate it, whatever. It's my drug. It's the thing. It's what keeps me going every year. It's like knowing that I have to go do this thing every year. It's an important milestone, and without it, I don't know what I would do. I would probably just fucking walk off a cliff or something. I have no idea. Like it's
you would sit on your couch and watch the trailers and the press conferences with beer and not have to do anything.
But then I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be sitting in a hotel room watching those things and typing snarky things into Twitter versus sitting at home and watching those things and typing snarky things into Twitter. I need that. I need to be in the location even if I don't actually need to be in the location. Does that make any sense?
No. This sounds like what an addict says. Like your rationalizations have no presence in reality.
Look, man, I just need to go for a little while. I just need to be in the vicinity of the press conferences. I just need a little taste, I just need a little taste just to get me through the week. That's all I need, man.
RSVP has been denied.
Oh.
You can hang out outside. You just can't come in.
Oh. Yeah, so that's, I don't know. I've been preparing for that week in San Francisco and getting into like 2 weeks on the road, which I haven't done in a while. But other than that, that's pretty much been my week. I went and saw our new studio space yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How's that? Is it like a closet?
It's small, but it will serve, I think, Vinny and I just fine. I don't know that we're going to be in that space permanently. It sounds like we might be moving at some point. I don't really know. But for at least the first couple of months that Vinny is out here, we have a space that looks like it's lined up. We'll have to go get some equipment at some point, but the space is good, and they have a bunch of stuff already, so that's a good start. There is a green screen curtain. That is the important detail.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited to see what really stupid shit that you guys get up to.
We got a couple of ideas. We've been kicking some things around. I guess Vinny's on the road right now. Like he is driving.
He's coming through. Chicago at some point. Might be staying over at our place sometime. I don't know. I'm
trying to figure out what route he's taking because when I tried to text him yesterday, he was like driving through like Death Valley or something. So I feel like he's taking like a very weird serpentine route through America to get to New Jersey.
Well, he left early enough that because he was talking to me about when I drove across last year, and I did an indirect route because I took, you can do San Francisco to Chicago in 3, sort of hellish, 12-hour drives.
Yeah, if you're taking a bunch of trucker speed and just fucking just hammering the gas the whole way through, you can do that in about 3 days.
It's about 35 hours, I think, if I remember correctly. But that's not like an enjoyable ride. Whereas if he's given himself about a week and change, that's you can like stop, you can do things. You only have to drive 5-6 hours a day. Like it's completely manageable sort of thing for a road trip. But yeah, at some point he's coming through Chicago, and he's going to help us out with some of the Giant Bomb Chicago plans that are materializing out here as well.
Cool.
So I'm excited about that. You play any other games?
Not really, no. I played a little bit of Super Time Force more. I still really like that game a lot, but I only got like one world done this entire week because this week's been a little nuts. I did play some more Transistor. I think I'm nearing the end of that game.
How many hours?
Oh God, I don't even know. I haven't been keeping very good
10?
track. So I'm definitely less than 10 so far. I think I'm nearing the end. I don't know if I actually am, but I feel like I am. So
my hope is that I don't really think, with the exception of my brother wants to come over and see Watch Dogs. Although Jeff's review sort of confirmed a lot of how I suspect I will feel about that game. So it's not. I'm going to play it. It's based in Chicago. I'm going to play it, but
that's a reasonable thing.
I don't feel like I need to race out and start playing it immediately. So I mostly just want to finish Wolfenstein and Transistor before heading off to E3, and then I feel like I can get to Watch Dogs after E3. But my brother's band, or I guess former band, they're in the game.
Oh, really?
You heard about some game called Watch Dogs? It's like, yeah. He's like, we're an unlockable song because they're a Chicago band, I guess. So they got some local flavor. His band was the Audition. I don't know if the band is ever completely broken up, but they're certainly not active at the moment.
Right.
But I guess they are in the game in some capacity. So he's like, I need to come over and see that. I was like, okay. So I might play that a little bit with him to try and unlock his song, but otherwise I'm sort of laser focused on finishing Wolfenstein and Transistor before heading to LA.
Yeah, I am leaving Watch Dogs for post E3 at this point. Like, I'll play it. I'm interested enough to at least see what it's like. But at this point, I would rather start playing Mario Kart Online this weekend and try and get through more of Super Time Force with what little free time I have this weekend, rather than try and dig into Watch Dogs at this point, because it just doesn't sound that interesting. Like, everything Jeff wrote about it just made it seem like this is exactly the kind of game I don't feel like playing right now. That might change, but right now I don't.
I hard to tell how much of that is sort of if you look at Assassin's Creed as potentially a model for where this franchise could go. I know there are some people that really, really, really like the original Assassin's Creed. I didn't play it, so I can't speak to it one way or the other. I didn't jump on till 2. But Assassin's Creed 1 was interesting to a lot of people, but didn't quite work and had a lot of repetition and didn't really truly execute upon a lot of the ideas that it set out to work with until the second game. At least that's sort of the popular consensus. And I know that seems to be sort of Jeff's hope with Watch Dogs, is that, this is interesting. Hopefully at some point they make it interesting.
I feel like the original Assassin's Creed also benefited from the time in which it came out. Like, when did that game come out? Like 2006, 2007, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there wasn't, there had been a lot of open world games at that point, but there hadn't been as many open world games at that point. So despite its being kind of repetitive, like, it benefited from looking really great and being kind of an original concept and being something different. Very little about Watch Dogs other than the sort of like the sort of bending the city to your will using nebulous hacking mechanics thing seems like it's really all that special, other than, it's like there's a cool concept here. Just doesn't seem like they really did anything that interesting with it, and I feel like it coming out in 2014, it's not getting nearly the same benefit of the doubt that the original Assassin's Creed got.
Yeah, we'll see. I like I said, certainly want to play it, but some of the response, especially Jeff's review, just sort of that was kind of my gut feeling on this game. I wouldn't blame anyone for liking it, offering a lot of, it seems like a pretty good open world game in the context of open world games, but if you were expecting it to be something truly different, which is kind of what I was expecting from that original trailer of the game, and Ubisoft has sort of systematically dismantled my expectations in the ensuing years. The pitch of Watch Dogs is what I fell in love with. The game they made is not quite what I was hoping for, but I suspect I'll still have a good time with it. I just, sort of, again, without having played it, so sort of just spouting a bunch of bullshit, and mostly based on Jeff's review, that it's not quite what I was hoping for, and that's a bummer. But Ubisoft has shown their ability to really capitalize on sequels, so I think there's still a lot of reason to be hopeful for Watch Dogs. And the day one sales, I didn't see if Ubisoft released exact numbers, but certainly they said it was their best opening day ever. There will be another Watch Dogs game.
Oh yeah.
And I'm certainly curious to see which sections. That's what I'm super curious about with the sequels is where do they double down? Like what features do they emphasize going forward? I would love. They're never going to get rid of guns, right? Like guns are going to be like the idea of a gunless Watch Dogs is not going to happen. But
they'll get rid of guns when they get rid of guns in America, which is not happening. So yeah,
I would love to see them emphasize the stealth stuff a little bit more. Like really take your ability to manipulate the environment to allow you to have a completely different play style. And I'm looking forward to having a more informed opinion on that once I played the game. But that's what I would hope for with another Watch Dogs. Is just using this base concept to flesh out how the player can interact with that world and have it reflect the kind of character they want to play.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more next Friday, which I imagine is the next time we'll actually be able to do one of these shows, because Monday is when I'm flying to San Francisco. Unless you want to just do it with a guest next Monday, which by all means, but I will not be around, unfortunately.
We'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've not had a chance to play Watch Dogs yet. I have not had a chance to really do very much game-wise this week. It's mostly just been kind of getting ready for next week in E3 and doing
I played 3 Worlds of Kirby's Triple Deluxe.
How is that?
It seems like it's going to be a top candidate for great game that no one fucking played in 2014.
Oh. I need to put something on my DS for the flight next week, so maybe I should throw that on there.
It's pretty good. It's not challenging, although it gets more challenging than my expectations had led me to believe by the third world. I've been meaning to maybe write something about this because there seems to be a trend in Nintendo's platforming design, which is if you play a lot of their platforming games, whether it's the Galaxy games, especially Super Mario 3D Land and 3D World, if you choose to not engage with the collectibles, it really changes those games in fundamental ways that I think makes them much weaker. I remember talking about this with Jeff during the Game of the Year stuff, where I hate the term "you're playing it wrong."
Yes.
But if you don't engage with the collectibles in 3D World, you don't get to see the real genius of the level design. Like, they're not collectibles that are just put in the world to be collectibles, which is actually what a lot of Ubisoft does for their open world stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
It feels really just like buffering and padding in the world to give you something to do, not necessarily really meaningful expressions by the designers. And I think that is not the case especially in Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land, where those collectibles really push you to use the abilities of the characters and the expressiveness of the player's actions in order to get that stuff. And it makes the games much more difficult, much more interesting, and not necessarily more in line with the difficulty of the older platform games that Nintendo used to design, but it gets a little bit closer, and it seems, maybe in the interests of trying to continue to reach wider audiences, Nintendo has hidden essentially difficulty levels behind collectibles.
Yeah.
And that's also true in Kirby to a lesser extent, because Kirby is never meant to be a particularly difficult game. But in Triple Deluxe, like a lot of the really genius moments in the level design come out of searching for the stuff they have hidden in the game. And if I wasn't looking for that stuff, it really would just be boringly moving left to right and not really having to engage with any enemies. And it would be a much less interesting game. And if someone, because they're not a requirement, you could see, like, especially, I've always had this conversation with Jeff, because he's always just like, well, if it doesn't make me want to do it, then why should I do it? And that's a totally reasonable position to take. But I was like, but you're missing out on this much better game. And you're missing out because Nintendo's not forcing you to do it. And I think it's a very deliberate design choice on their end. But, man, I really think it locks away much better games within these games that not necessarily everyone gets a chance to see because you don't have to do it.
Well, it feels like the middle ground for that was sort of like Super Mario 3D World, because that's a game where those stars are how you progress. You know, it's like you can beat the levels, and then you'll get, if you just get one or two or whatever, you'll get to a decent point. But once you get to like that halfway point in the game, you need to have a lot of those stars, otherwise you can't really get to the next world. So it's like, yeah, you can just kind of get through the level and complete it without collecting the stars or whatever. But then you go back and you're like, oh wait, I can't get into that castle because I didn't get those stars. So like, I guess that's maybe like kind of more like the middle ground of that. My girlfriend hated that when we were playing Mario World, because she doesn't necessarily love going around looking for collectibles and finds that kind of frustrating, because, I mean, admittedly, some of those stars were a little hard to get. Most of them weren't, but a few were. So she would make me go back and be like, just replay those levels and just go get those stars, and then I'll join back up when you're done. So that was not my favorite thing, going back and having to get some of those stars that we didn't bother to get while playing co-op. But at the same time, I agree, it does make the game much more challenging when you do have to go for that stuff and you are actively looking for that stuff. It makes it a lot more interesting. As someone who was very willing to blow past a lot of collectibles in a lot of games when that wasn't really a requirement, I kind of had my eyes opened a little bit when I realized, oh wait, I need to do this, and doing this is actually making it more fun in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think this is the rub that Jeff and I were talking about, is I don't like the fact that it locks stages behind that collecting aspect, because I think that reinforces a stereotyped idea that collectibles are just collectibles to gate you, as opposed to them being sort of a carrot in order for you to play differently, or to challenge you to try new ways of interacting with the world. But when you're just gating stages, then because so many games do collectibles so poorly, I don't blame anyone for just going, well, screw that noise. That's just annoying that they're locking things behind, forcing me to go back through stages again, and it feels just like padding. So it's a really difficult thing to try and pull off. NYC New York points out that he likes the way the older 3D ones did it, where the goal was explicitly to collect the stars.
Right.
That like in Mario 64, when you go into a stage, the reason you're replaying it is because it was a different objective in order to grab the star on that stage. And I totally agree. I think that is a much better way of melding the idea of collecting these objects, because it's the explicit objective. That's the reason you're playing this game, or these stages, or the reason you're in this stage again, is because, oh, well, now it's a time trial. And part of that design may have been a technological limitation or a content limitation, but I think that's a much better melding of asking the player to do different things within the same level, without it feeling like it's a collectathon to pad out the game experience. And I don't know, it got me thinking about that, because the way Nintendo has evolved that design, in the last like 5-10 years is really interesting, and I think unfortunately creates, if you just follow what the game is asked the bare minimum of, you end up playing a far less interesting game than what is actually hidden in the design. That's kind of a
most definitely. I forget what got us. You were talking about Kirby. That was what got this conversation going.
Yeah, it's a good game. People should play it. I doubt anyone will.
I'm gonna add it to my 3DS today. I'm gonna add that and Mario Golf, so I have some different things to play on the plane.
There you go. But yeah, there was a lot of news that we should get to.
Yeah, we should talk about the biggest news right up front. Let's just get it right out there.
All right.
Nintendo is making an adapter for the GameCube controller for the Wii U. This is by far the most insane, just absolutely mind-shattering news that could have possibly broken this week. Patrick, how do you feel about this?
It seems like a smart move.
I guess. I don't know. I fucking hate the GameCube controller the way I have hated a lot of Nintendo controllers over the years.
But you don't play Smash Brothers.
But I don't play Smash Brothers is the thing, so I don't have that connection to it. Understanding that people who play Smash Brothers and are very into the Smash Brothers scene are very fond of the GameCube controller, this makes perfect sense. As someone who does not play any Smash Brothers really at all, this looks like someone creating a thing to make a worse thing plug into your new thing, and that doesn't sound very appealing to me. But I am not the target audience, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see Nintendo, not usually a company that caters, is really going out of their way to give the Smash Brothers audience kind of, it seems like so far, everything they want. You know, they're being way more interested in esports and the competitive scene. They recently revealed, I saw that they're going to have a revenue sharing program with streamers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that put things up on Twitch and YouTube. And, you know, these things are all coming very late, but nonetheless seem to reflect maybe this is part of, you know, Nintendo with their back against the wall, realizing they need to do everything they can to make Smash Brothers the biggest hit possible.
Yeah.
And part of how you do that is getting the faithful really, really excited, and you get the faithful excited by giving them what they want and, you know, giving them a GameCube adapter, participating in esports, getting an ad revenue share for, you know, the people that are so hardcore enough that they are streaming your games. Like that stuff, I think that those are all linked as part of a larger initiative that, if anything, I don't think the Wii U is, you know, savable in the sense that it's going to become another Wii. But
Right.
if they are going to ride this out for another 2 years before another hardware platform comes along, they seem pretty convinced that if there's a game that's going to help them do it, Smash Brothers is it.
And they're probably right. I mean, that is the game that can, is, you know, so to speak, reach across the aisle and get people that are not necessarily interested in buying a Wii U otherwise to get one, because there are enough people, I think, that are into the whole Smash Brothers thing, whether it's competitive or just for fun, that, you know, that game probably will make a very strong case for buying one of those systems. Here's the question I have. Are they actually going to re-release new GameCube controllers? Like, is that a thing they're going to put in stores at this point? Or are they just banking on everyone already having at least one floating around somewhere?
Yeah, this is like the hardcore of the hardcore. If
Right.
you care enough, if you care about this news, you have a GameCube controller somewhere, or
Yeah.
go to eBay. I suspect they are not going to fire up the manufacturing for a new GameCube controller. I mean, I guess maybe it's possible that they would do some sort of special edition, you know, or something like that, but I think this is very much, if you care about this accessory, you still own a GameCube controller.
Who's to say they don't have a warehouse full of unsold GameCube controllers just somewhere in Japan that they couldn't just repackage and throw those out there as like a limited edition Wii U game controller? You know, like that. That could work.
If they put out a special edition of Smash Brothers this fall with a GameCube controller packed in, I don't really play Smash Brothers, but I'll buy it just to support something that weird.
Lausbub says they are partnering with another company to make new ones.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
That sounds... There, see? I have all the good ideas after Nintendo has already had them, so awesome.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
New GameCube controllers. This is how desperate Nintendo's got. They have to make new GameCube controllers. That things have gotten so bad for the Wii U that they have to pretend that the GameCube was the glory days.
Yeah.
Hey, the GameCube had a lot of great games.
The GameCube did have a lot of great games. It had those tiny discs. I like those tiny discs. I mean,
So weird.
The audio was terrible on a lot of those games because of them, but I liked how tiny they were. It was a little box. You had a little handle. You carried it around with you like a lunchbox. It was adorable.
And I liked how weird that GameCube controller was. I don't necessarily blame you for disliking the controller, but holy shit, man.
Don't mistake my meaning. It's a big improvement over, say, the N64 controller, which is an abject disaster. And it's better than, say, like the Wii, like the little plastic nubbin thing that you attach to the Wii remote to do that. It's better than those, certainly. It's still just not a controller I ever had much affection for. But that's because I didn't play Smash Brothers, really. So that all fits together.
So that's happening with
that's Nintendo news.
That's oh, I'm looking at the photo now. Oh, it's a multi-tap adapter too. That's, oh man, fantastic.
I love it.
Good
for them. Good for them doing that.
Some bummer news.
Yeah. A lot of bummer news this week.
Is closing.
Yes.
So everyone is gone. For Mythic, who was acquired by EA some number of years ago, they're making the Warhammer Online. What else were they doing?
So they made that Dungeon Keeper game that everyone hated.
Really? Did they?
Yes.
Hmm.
They've been making some mobile stuff. They made that Ultima game also, the one that came out on iOS not that long ago.
Okay, so it seems like they were sort of EA's go-to studio for here are some old IPs we don't know what to do with. Try and make something interesting on mobile, and that seems like a impossible task.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the reception for that fucking Dungeon Keeper game was toxic. Everyone was very angry at that game. Ultima at least seemed like it had some thing going for it, but I don't know how well it sold necessarily.
And you know what? None of that probably Mythic's fault. They're an internal
Yeah.
studio tasked with, hey, make this. I could be wrong. I don't know enough about how that game was made, but wouldn't surprise me if that was a mandate brought down from on high of how this game was going to be sold, not necessarily the way the people who made it wanted to sell it.
No, not necessarily at all.
Because it didn't seem like necessarily Dungeon Keeper was a bad game. It was a lot of the free-to-play stuff was really gross and exploitative, and
well, in this case, the free-to-play stuff I think overtook the game. Like it became the omnipresent, experience, and that it was so pervasive that basically the actual game part was not very playable because of it.
yeah. So it's the idea that that's what Mythic was reduced to, kind of a bummer, and
Real unfortunate.
Certainly evokes feelings of old EA.
Yeah.
A company that was notorious for acquiring beloved companies and running them into the ground. I'm not sure if Mythic ever really had quite that status, but certainly the people that played, like Dark Age of Camelot, and I know that game had a very devoted following. They're just kind of get chewed up and spit out, and certainly not a studio that reflected the values it was founded upon once it was acquired. Sometimes that stuff happens because there's no other way out. It's either get acquired or call it quits.
Yeah.
It's been a while since all that happened with EA, so I'm not on the up and up about why the acquisition happened in the first place. But certainly a bummer to see them go and to see another developer disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
Not so great.
Not disappearing into the ether, but suffering similar problems. Harmonix, despite getting Amplitude funded last week, went through a round of layoffs this week as well. 37 employees were let go as part of a restructuring thing that also has former CEO Alex Rogopoulos now working as chief creative officer, whereas another executive at the company has now moved in the CEO role. So big.
Steve Janiak?
Yeah, Janiak, who's relatively new there. As of the last couple of years, I think. I don't know very much about him, but he's been, he's a relatively recent addition to the team, and now he's in charge of the studio, whereas Rogopoulos will be moving into a creative direction role, I guess. There's no good way to look at that news. Especially coming on the heels of the Kickstarter getting funded. The only thing I can kind of say to all of that is that I'm guessing if the Kickstarter had not been funded, that number would have been a lot higher. Because there would not have been another game for anyone to be working on. So there's that.
They also, I don't have it here on my list, but I saw the headline floating around about the Chroma Alpha concluded recently, and the email more or less said that game was getting completely retooled. I don't know if that's just a coded way of saying canceled. I know that wasn't being made entirely internally. That was being worked on.
It was mostly being done externally.
Right. But so it seems like, that Chroma, but certainly probably had some internal staff associated with it. So that game, maybe not being canceled, but is disappearing for a while.
Yeah.
And 37 people is a lot for how many people can possibly work at that company?
At their peak, that studio was over 300 people. It has not been anywhere near that number for a while.
Because they went through a substantial number of layoffs.
Multiple rounds of them.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, I mean, this is a ballpark figure, but I'm guessing they were at maximum, they were at half that number, so maybe 150 people total. I'm guessing it was still lower than that, too. So they might be under 100 now. I don't know. But
So 37 people, not an insignificant amount of people. Even if they were at their peak 300, 37 is a chunk. That's
it's a chunk.
seems like a team.
Yeah.
But they haven't really said exactly why. The statement they put out was Harmonix is in the process of restructuring our organization to bring it into alignment with our current and future product development plans, a Harmonix spokesman told a number of websites. Unfortunately, This means making the difficult decision to reduce the number of full-time staff. Sometimes stuff like this happens when a project doesn't get picked up into full production, and you can only keep people around for a certain amount of time before, if they've got nothing to fully contribute to, that's unhealthy for the studio as a whole, even if you don't want to get rid of those people.
Yeah, and in this case, at least a number of the names that were in that list were people who had been there for a very long time, like people who were very much instrumental in creating the culture of that studio as much as the games. Naoko, who was like one of the leads on Dance Central. Kurt, who was like the front desk guy and had been the front desk guy for many, many years, who was like, old crust punk dude that everybody loved. Like that's the kind of people they were letting go in that wave, and that's not. It always sucks when you let go of people, but when you're actually like cutting people who were sort of instrumental in creating your company's entire culture, like that's fucking harsh. So,
well, bummer.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully those people, both at Mythic and at Harmonix, find jobs real soon. That is. Just seems like job cuts are is kind of something we hear about every couple of weeks.
I mean, as always, the internet has sprung to life, and there are jobs page floating around all over social media at this point. There are lists, and various companies are hiring. So it seems like, again, this is the one industry where it feels like anytime this happens, people try to take care of their own, the other people that work in this industry, which is nice to see. Hopefully they land on their feet soon.
There's a bunch of consolidation happening in the UK media too. I saw that Future is cutting 170 jobs and like straight up shuttering the online portions of CVG, Edge Online, official PlayStation, official Xbox, and official Nintendo magazines. Really, mostly, I mean, obviously, job losses are crappy all around, but the fact that Edge Online is getting shut down is a bummer, because if you don't subscribe to the magazine, that was one of the few places where you saw some of their terrific articles show up online. Hopefully that does, hopefully that continues to show up in some capacity. But it's weird to hear that a print version is still sticking around while an online version is being shuttered. For sure.
That is such a Future move. Like, I'm sorry, that is like the most Future move. Like, let's get rid of the thing that might be successful for us in the long term in order to keep this old business that we think will probably die in a year around, because I don't know. Like, that's just the kind of shit Future does. Like, my girlfriend used to work at Future. She worked on their music magazines, which actually made them money. And that was the first thing they sold when they started, rejiggering their U.S. operations. Never mind that our video game magazines don't make any money. Let's sell off the only things that actually are profitable in the U.S.
That sounds like what a company does when it's completely on fire and is just trying to get whatever money it can before it all implodes.
Yeah.
Ed Boon teasing a new Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Of course he is. Like, what else were they going to be working on right now?
Yeah, I mean, there was a photo that appeared on Reddit. It was a poster that had a spine and the bottom of Mortal Kombat logo and says "Who's next?" NetherRealm has historically, since starting the working on sort of an alternate schedule with, first with, what was it, Mortal Kombat first. What was that? DC something.
Mortal Kombat versus DC whatever thing. Are you talking about Injustice, or are you talking about?
No. There was the one before Injustice. Yeah, Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe.
Yeah.
Sort of started the trend of them alternating between Mortal Kombat and DC fighting games, and that seems like that's going to continue. And I got to admit that last Mortal Kombat sort of scratched my itch.
Oh yeah.
Another Mortal Kombat. I'm not saying this one won't be fun or interesting or cool, but part of the reason that one was as fun as it was because of the long break it took.
Yeah.
But I will say I am curious to see what Mortal Kombat looks like on current gen tech. So it's got that going for it. But as someone that actually learned moves and stuff the last time around, I can't suspect I will do that again. I'll play a story mode.
I bet a lot of the moves will be the same. The basic moves will be the same.
Well, no, but I mean, like actually learning and trying to get some strategy down with a couple of characters. Like I don't ever do that, but I was drawn into doing that with the last Mortal Kombat. Hard for me to imagine doing that again, but we'll see. They certainly have a pretty compelling way of making these fighting games, despite being in 2014 and almost no one else finding a way to make them and be profitable. So curious to see it, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more excited than you are, just because I was so into 9, despite not ever really being able to play it online because I was not that good at it. I really, really enjoyed the offline single-player stuff, and I actually replayed a whole bunch of that game when it came out on Vita, because that Vita version is remarkably good for a Vita port of an existing console game. So I'm very excited about whatever it is they're working on, especially anytime. The thing with Mortal Kombat is that anytime the technology improves, it just gets grosser. That is the main thing that they go for. They just find ways to somehow make it more just overtly disgusting. So I'm curious to see what their line is going to be like this time. Like, where are they going to draw the line on the grossness? Probably pretty fucking far, I'm guessing.
Yeah, especially that's one way to get some attention with the new set of technology. To see what they end up doing with the fatalities and things like that. Pushmo coming to Wii U. Could not be more excited about that. Zero sarcasm. Pushmo is fucking great. It's so good on 3DS, and I am very excited for a big HD Pushmo. So thank you, Nintendo, for recognizing the glory that is Pushmo and deciding that they're going to put out Pushmo World real soon, June 19th. Game of the Year 2014 is coming real early. Really glad Pushmo was able to make it happen.
I don't have a lot of opinion on Pushmo because I never really played Pushmo.
Oh, it's so good. Pushmo is so good. You need to play some Pushmo.
Well, maybe I'll play this new one.
Yeah. I guess some Project Beast footage went online this morning.
Yeah, there were a couple of leaks floating around, but that was one of the big ones. So this is From Software, but this is not
ostensibly. None of this is official yet.
Yeah, but presumably this is From Software making a game that looks, at least in some flavors, like something that could fit into the scheme of a Souls game, but at least is not, as of yet, is not labeled as such.
No, well, so Dark Souls was called Project Dark when it was in development, and it is rumored that this game is called Project Beast, and the footage that I'm looking at right now, which is roughly 20 seconds long, it's all in motion of the screenshots we have seen in the past, or plucked from the screenshots that were floating around before, and goddamn, does it look good. It looks really, really good. It looks really, really good. Oh man, I just played Dark Souls 2, a game that I was kind of disappointed with, but I'm in. That has not dampened my excitement at all for Project Beast, especially because Project Beast will be coming from the man behind Demon's Souls and Dark Souls, who was not involved heavily in Project Beast. But yeah, make sure and check that out. That footage is floating around. It looks completely legit, and it looks good.
Also floating around this week was footage for Battlefield Hardline.
That's the Visceral Battlefield spinoff, right?
Yeah, I think DICE is working on it too. I think Visceral's just doing the single-player portion of it. At least that's what it sounds like. I could be totally wrong about that. But yeah, so there was a video floating around. It's apparently an internal video. It was never meant for public consumption. It was made about 6 months ago, according to the head of Visceral. And it's cops and robbers, basically. It's police versus criminals in various American locales. The lead character is named Nick Mendoza, which leads me to very much hope that somewhere in that single-player campaign, he will be mortally injured, and one character will yell, "Mendoza!" at the sky, and it will be great. It will make me so happy. I hope. Other than that, I don't really have any questions about that game other than, is it going to fucking work? Like, that's my only question for anything Battlefield at this point, right?
Well, they put out like a separate statement, saying they're about to drop a huge patch to reform the netcode in Battlefield 4. And I think that, Visceral didn't make the last one. And I'm trying to see if Battlefield Hardline Dice multiplayer. Let's see if I can get anything to come up that can clarify that for us.
I just want to say I'm really glad the chat got my Mendoza joke, because I have no idea what Simpsons references play anymore versus which ones don't. I don't know. I have no idea where that line is anymore.
Also confirmed is lead development. This is from a Kotaku story. Lead development is Visceral and not the Dice division. So, previous reports had pegged Ghost Games, the Dice spin-off studio that made last year's Need for Speed Rivals, as helping with Hardline's development. The driving sequences here shown they might be the studio's handiwork. So it doesn't say here, but it seems like that this may all be Visceral from top to bottom.
That'd be good.
Well, yeah, it would be nice if EA just let Dice work on obviously Battlefield 5 and
also whatever Star Wars thing they're working on.
Right. And just get that right, because I don't think they can put out another proper Battlefield and not have it be top to bottom polished and good to go. But yeah, that's going to hang over Hardline's head, regardless of Visceral not being involved in that previous Battlefield's development. But at least maybe this Battlefield single player could be interesting. I stopped playing. It could be.
Maybe.
DICE is not good at making single player stuff.
No.
At least when it comes to Battlefield 3 and 4, I know people are big fans of the single player in Bad Company.
Right.
It had a much sillier, goofy atmosphere than Battlefield 3 and 4 has, which is more in line with Call of Duty. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched the 7-minute trailer at this point. Maybe I'll just wait for the more up-to-date trailer at E3. But
you know what? It's worth watching, even if it's not meant for public consumption. Like, there's enough in there to where you get a real sense of what they're going for. Some of it is cheesy as shit, but some of it also looks really neat. Like, definitely like a much more blown up version of, like, say, Payday. Like that kind of idea, but taken to much more insane Battlefield-like extremes, which is ludicrous, but, if you're going to Michael Bay-eyes, Payday, then I'm maybe at least kind of interested in that.
Well, and almost anything would be better than the single-player stuff in the Battlefield games as they exist now. So, Visceral's working with a pretty low bar, but, I liked Dead Space, so that doesn't mean anything for a new Battlefield game, but I like Dead Space. I like that.
I'm actually just kind of glad they're working on something that isn't like a third-person action game. Like, I'd be curious to see what they can do with something that's a little bit outside that comfort zone of the Dead Space games and Dante's Inferno and whatever else. Like, try something different. See how it is.
Valve implying there's going to be a delay to 2015 for the Steam machines. Not surprising that Valve will take its time.
Mm-hmm. That is a thing that Valve has been known to do in various contexts.
But it's a little bit different when you're announcing hardware and partnering with different manufacturers in order to get that stuff together. But Valve's a company that does take their time, so they seem to have implied. I'm trying to read through the statement here, but basically that it's not coming out this year. So we'll see. I suspect we will not see much about it at E3. Maybe at most there'll be some games that announce, Linux support, which more or less becomes Steam OS support.
Right.
But outside of that, I suspect we won't hear much about that till later this year.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think that's going to be a running theme at E3 this year. Not coming out in 2014. A lot of things, a lot of announcements, almost none of it this year.
Yeah. Fall 2014, not looking so hot.
There's some stuff.
There is, no, for sure. There's gonna be some good games, but compared to what it seemed to be shaping up to be, not quite that.
Roundabout. That got greenlit. That's coming out sometime this fall. That's going to be great. That's going
That
to be the best
game
game.
actually more fun than it looked.
I know, right? Yeah, I
I,
didn't know what to expect out of it, but I actually thought it was really neat.
yeah, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Mario Kart 8, Mercedes DLC.
Japan only.
That's
Still.
okay. Still weird.
Yeah, that definitely is a move that you don't expect Nintendo to make. I mean, I'm not going to say that that purity is necessarily a hallmark of Nintendo products, but the idea of sponsored DLC for a car company in Mario Kart is not something I would have ever expected them to do. I'm not mad at it. I don't even really care. I mean, even if it came to the US, I don't think I would be all that mad about it. It's just a little weird.
Yeah, it's free, so I mean, eh.
Eh.
It's hard to muster much anger at it, but one way or the other, or feelings rather. But yeah, odd. Definitely not like Nintendo, and I'm not sure how to feel that one way or the other.
The only good thing about this is that it shows that they at least have the idea of DLC in mind for that game, which says to me
Yeah,
that
sure.
maybe they might add some more courses at some point, which would be nice.
Yeah. What is Mario Kart out? Is that
It's out
out?
today.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
I have to delete more stuff on my Wii U. I don't think I can fit that digitally.
Yeah, that shit fills up pretty quick. It's actually not that big of a game. It's only like 4 gigs total.
Oh, okay. That game company raised $7 million in funding from capital investment, and they're going to develop and publish the game on their own, which I think is pretty interesting and exciting. A lot of the talent you associated with Journey is actually no longer at that company.
Yeah,
A
other
lot
than
of them.
Genova, there have been a lot of key personalities from that team that have departed in the last few years.
Yeah. So it's not to say that was everyone or that there isn't lots of talent still there, but a lot of the key figures behind Journey are no longer are there. I mean, that makes sense. Like they took Journey, which was about as critically acclaimed as a game of that scale can get, competing hand in hand with the biggest out there. It's not surprising that people took that opportunity to launch into bigger things on their own.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely super excited to see what comes of this. It seems like if they're just raising money now, like I doubt we're going to see the game anytime soon. It's
Probably not.
Probably sometime next year. But hey, Genova Chen is making a new game. I'm gonna play it.
And it might not be a Sony exclusive this time because, you no longer have that.
Yeah,
that
they said
attachment.
pretty explicitly right after Journey that they intended to go multi-platform going forward. So, whether that means like PC, I don't know, but they certainly have been known as a console company, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were putting that game out on everything.
Yeah.
The last I talked to him, he certainly seemed interested in exploring the multiplayer concept of Journey on a larger scale, and I think some of the job descriptions for spots they've been hiring for have indicated they want to explore multiplayer. But that's a company that prototypes and ditches stuff all the time. So just because they were hiring for network infrastructure and Genova was interested in multiplayer stuff 2 years ago does not mean that has anything to do with the game they end up putting out sometime in the next couple of years. But looking forward to seeing some of that, and I don't know, that seems, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about, that seems to broadly touch on a lot of the stuff that's happened.
Yeah, I think that
so.
covers the majority of the week. There's probably some other stuff, but whatever. At this point, like I can't even think about it anymore. I have a lot to do before I leave town, so.
Yeah, you do. I have a lot to catch up on and continue prepping for our E3 stuff that is not next week, but the week after that. And
yeah.
Very excited about it. Lots of cool stuff going on. Lots of confirmations for exciting guests. A lot of new faces, a lot of old faces. So it should be good all around. I don't really have much else going on today. It's mostly a catch-up day because I've been gone for 6 days. Tedified asked, what do you think about The Evil Within moving to October? If that means the game is better, I'm okay with that.
Also, isn't that the month when you should release a big horror game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but August is nice and cushy and away from a lot of other big games.
Yeah.
So while it may thematically fit better, October is also pretty stacked with stuff. Although I guess some games have moved out. That would have been historically where Batman
Right.
came out, and they seem to be like switching to a coming soon theme in their trailers, which maybe
Yeah.
that means that game is not
Not ready.
not long for 2014.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that E3 is going to be a lot of, oh hey, you thought this game was coming out this year? Nope.
No.
Nope.
Let's see. I'm trying to think what I have coming up today. I have an interview that will be going up in the dump truck a little bit later with a couple of guys who are trying to kickstart a game based on Chikara, which is an independent wrestling promotion that is completely insane. And it's
Okay.
not a wrestling game. It's a side-scrolling brawler, which is ridiculous. And so I talked to them a little bit about that and what they want to do with that game. So that will go up today. And then next week we will be recording a new Power Bombcast. Rory and I will grab him by the neck and bring him into a room, and we will record another box office bomb. And then I imagine we will be doing Mario Kart 8 Quick Look next week when I'm in town, because I don't think they actually have a copy of that game in the San Francisco office, so I will be the one bringing the Mario Kart to San Francisco.
Sweet. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. And all right, yeah. So we won't chat on Monday. If I can pull together a guest, maybe we'll do something on Monday. But I got plenty to work on, and there'll be plenty to talk about later. So maybe we'll just reconvene next Friday. But that's a show. And
As a show.
Alex, I'll see you online, but otherwise, next I see you pretty soon in Los Angeles.
Looking forward to it, man. See you then. Oh.